and that's not going to appear on TV automatically. You're the ones to determine. Okay, good. Good.
Yeah.
Well, you'll get a signal.
All right. Oh, did you? Oh, yeah, look at that. There it is. Did you hear all that? Testing, 1, 2, 3. So did you hear? Did you hear that he's got a couple of slides that the chairwoman will have a slide? Ranking mic, test 1, 2. Test 1, 2, 1, 2. Witness mic, test. Witness mic, test. Witness mic, test. Witness mic, test.
Check, 1, 2. Oh. Check, 1, 2, 3. Sound check, 1, 2, 3. You good?
Testing, testing, sound check, 1, 2. Lisa, Lisa.
Sure. Do you mind, if you want to, it'd be a good time to test out the mic.
Okay. Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, good morning. Is that enough? Do you want me to keep talking, or?
No, I think they're good.
Okay.
Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Check test 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's as high as I can count. It's getting better.
My microphone gave us up way too high.
Are you getting a? Are you getting a?
No buzzing.
No buzz. Okay.
Quorum being present, the Subcommittee on Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education will come to order. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's hearing. We're here to discuss strengthening career and technical education and the need to reform, improve, and modernize current law so that more students can experience the power of this important education. For decades, career and technical education has helped individuals compete in the workforce and build fulfilling careers. Today, state and local programs across the country are working to prepare students in high school and at community colleges for jobs in a variety of fields. Now, these programs serve more than 11 million students, helping them receive knowledge, skills, and real-world experience in fields ranging from healthcare and law enforcement to information technology and still manufacturing. Through the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Act, the federal government provides support to these state and local programs. It's a worthwhile investment in growing a skilled workforce, preparing students for post-secondary education or the workplace, and helping hardworking individuals, particularly younger individuals, achieve their goals in life. CTE helped Paul Say from Maryland, for example, go from a struggling high school student to the project manager for a mechanical contract company. Jasmine Morgan from Georgia realized her dream of becoming a sports marketing specialist through her experience with CTE. Alex Wolf embarked on a successful career in electrical engineering after participating in a CTE program in his home state of California. Now, these are just a few examples of the power CTE has to help students achieve their dreams and reach their full potential. However, changes to federal law need to be made, and that's what we're here to discuss today, updating career and technical education policies so that more students can enjoy the success that Paul, Jasmine, and Alex have seen. The Perkins Act hasn't been updated in more than a decade. I don't have to tell you that much has changed in the workplace and our economy since then. Technology has advanced, consumer needs have shifted, and the country has struggled through a slow and tough economic recovery. By strengthening CTE policies, we have an opportunity to ensure the law reflects the current realities facing students, workers, and employers today. It's an important opportunity, one that allows us not to only help more Americans seize opportunities in the workforce, but help them excel in the high-skilled jobs that exist today. In recent years, we've heard more and more about the quote-unquote skills gap, the idea that there are more job opportunities in this country than there are workers with the knowledge and skills necessary to fill those jobs. You heard me correctly. Even with too many Americans still unemployed, millions of job openings exist. The sad truth is that many still simply haven't prepared. Students aren't prepared for these jobs. Now, this need for skilled labor exists in a number of critical industries. In manufacturing alone, 6 out of 10 positions go unfilled because of the skills gap, and 84% of manufacturers agree there is a talent shortage. What's worse is that if current projections continue, more than 6 million jobs will remain unfilled by 2020. Something needs to change, and improving career and technical education is a great way to help bring about that change. And fortunately, we are starting from scratch. Last year, Congress came very close to passing a bipartisan bill that would deliver much-needed CTE reforms. Now, through a bipartisan effort led by Representatives Glenn Thompson and Catherine Clark, this committee unanimously approved legislation to strengthen CTE. So it's worth pausing and repeating that. Unanimously approved legislation, this committee. The important reforms in that legislation would empower state and local leaders to respond to changing education and economic needs. They would support innovative learning opportunities for students and help build better community partnerships, including stronger engagement with local employers. They would also improve accountability to ensure CTE programs are delivering real results and hardworking taxpayers' money is being well spent. That legislation went on to pass the House with overwhelming bipartisan support by a vote of 405 to 5. It also enjoyed broad support outside of Congress from groups representing students, schools, employers, and those in the civil rights community. Now, these common sense, bipartisan reforms provide us with a strong foundation to continue working to improve the law. Through hearings like this one and the legislative work ahead, we have an opportunity to help fill jobs, empower more individuals to achieve their goals, and provide more students a pathway to success. I'd like to thank our witnesses for joining us here today and look forward to hearing their stories and experiencing their experiences about power of CTE and what we can do to make it better. I know Mike Rowe has been working for years to elevate CTE as well as the kinds of dirty jobs of the men and women that are employed in those fields. His efforts has helped shine a light on countless Americans whose hard work and quiet determination help move this country forward. We appreciate all that you've done to support this country's students and workers, and we look forward to your testimony. So with that, I'll now recognize the Ranking Member, Congressman Polis, for his opening remarks.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Rokita. Today's hearing is very important because we're going to be examining the very important role in an evolving 21st century economy of career and technical education programs. Career and technical education programs help prepare our country's students, including those who are coming from non-traditional pathways for either success in college or career. And many of the programs across our school districts or in partnership with our school districts are funded under the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Improvement Act of 2006, which the committee is hoping to reauthorize this session. According to Georgetown University's Center on Educational Workforce, in the next 5 years, 65% of jobs in our economy in our country will require training beyond high school. In my home state of Colorado, career and technical education is really receiving a new facelift to reinvent it for the 21st century. Last year, our state created a pilot program where school districts receive $1,000 for students who complete a credential in a high-demand industry or finish a workplace training program or complete AP Computer Science course. This past fall, I visited the new P-Tech High School in Longmont, Colorado. It serves many students in my district. P-Tech, which also is known as Pathways in Technology Early College, allows all students to earn their high school diploma and an associate's degree in a STEM field. P-Tech is a partnership between the school district, Front Range Community College, and IBM. Other P-Tech partnerships include other private sector companies that are willing to provide educational internships for the students and educational support. And also the cooperation of a local community college is very important. In addition to supporting P-Tech, and there was language in last year's reauthorization that we hope to include in this year's as well, supportive of the P-Tech concept. Perkins also provides an excellent opportunity to support dual and concurrent enrollment programs, which are growing across the country. Dual enrollment, frankly, is one of the most successful educational programs that I've seen in my state and nationally. Every day, dual and concurrent enrollment are breaking down barriers to accessing college for many low-income and first-generation students. Students that participate in dual and concurrent enrollment programs are less likely to need remediation in college. They're 23% more likely to continue into post-secondary education after high school. It's also very cost-effective for students and their families. Last year, I visited Colorado Early College High School in Fort Collins. For students at Colorado Early College High School, they graduate high school with an associate's degree, often in 4 years. It can take 5 or 6 years as well, but the vast majority of the students complete the high school and an associate's degree in 4 years. These graduates not only are able to receive college credit and reduce the cost of college and cut their cost of a 4-year degree in half, but also receive the ability to have a deployable talent in the marketplace. Career and technical education is critical for filling high-need jobs. This last fall, I met with representatives from the Northern Colorado Labor Council. They shared how there's openings for apprenticeships in Northern Colorado, which pay a good wage and lead to a good job, but they don't have enough people, qualified people to fill those openings. This really gets to the heart of why we need strong career readiness programs. In many places, there are good paying jobs available for people who have the right skills. The federal government has an important role to play in partnering with school districts to ensure students have the skills to fill good paying jobs. Unfortunately, after the harmful sequestration cuts, public funding for career and technical education is at historic lows. It's clear that we should not continue to cut funding for critical programs like career and technical education, programs that actually can engage students with an integrated and practical and applied curriculum of core academic content and real-world work-based relevance. We need to support high-quality career and technical education programs, and for many years, the Perkins Act has supported the development of career and technical education programs that cultivate in-demand skills among secondary and post-secondary students. Reauthorization of the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Act gives this committee the opportunity to ensure that these programs are high quality, emphasize equity, align with academic and labor market demands to help grow our economy, and provide opportunities from all students, especially those who are historically underserved, to receive credentials that lead to high skills, high wage, in-demand career opportunities in the 21st century. We also need to ensure that any reauthorization is bipartisan, comes with strong accountability, transparency, and quality indicators that make sure that a diverse population of students is served and that every student is served well. We can achieve these goals through increased collaboration and flexibility at the state and local level, while maintaining the authority federally to make sure that the legislation meets its goals. I look forward to hearing from our distinguished panel of witnesses today and discussing how we can best equip our nation's students with the skills that they need to succeed in our rapidly evolving economy. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentleman. Pursuant to Committee Rule 7C, all members will be permitted to submit written statements to be included in the permanent hearing record, and without objection, the hearing record will remain open for 14 days to allow such statements and other extraneous material referenced during the hearing to be submitted for the official hearing record. I will now turn to the introduction of our distinguished witnesses. First, we have Mr. Glenn Johnson. He is a workforce development leader for BASF, where he works to develop partnerships with educational agencies and post-secondary partners. Welcome. Ms. Janet Goebel is the Director of Career and Technical Education for Canyons School District in Sandy, Utah, where she oversees CTE course offerings, business partnerships, and work-based learning student experiences. Welcome. Ms. Mimi Lufkin is the Executive Director for the National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity, where she conducts professional development activities and provides technical assistance to state and local education agencies focused on best practices for serving special population students. Ms. Lufkin, welcome. And finally, Mr. Mike Rowe, best known for the Discovery Channel show Dirty Jobs, now runs the Mike Rowe Works Foundation, which awards scholarships to students pursuing a career in the skilled trades. Mr. Rowe, welcome. Thank you for being here. I will now ask our witnesses to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And let the record reflect that all witnesses answered in the affirmative. Before I recognize you to provide your testimony, let me briefly explain our lighting system, which is a reminder for us up here as much as it is for you. You each have 5 minutes, of course, to present your testimony. When you begin, the light will be green, and then when there's 1 minute left, it'll be yellow. And guess what? When it's red, it's time to stop. So please do that so we can keep on time. I'd appreciate it. Members then will each have 5 minutes to ask their questions, and the red light applies to them just as equally. So with that, I'd like to recognize Mr. Johnson for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about CTE and how BASF has become very involved and very engaged in this type of work and activity. I'd like to also mention that I began my own career as very near to the bottom, starting as a process operator and working my way through the technical operations of manufacturing and technical careers. So I've lived the life that I'm advocate for these young people and even retooling adults to get involved with, and I'm very passionate about it. BASF has 154 locations in 29 states. 81 of those are production facilities and 17 are research and development. We have 15,000 employees that work in operations, engineering, research and development, and sales and marketing. In 2016 alone, we contributed more than $4.5 million to the communities that we live and work with in those areas. Because wherever possible, BASF seeks out to promote collaborations with K-12 through graduate school. Perkins grants are an important tool that enhances the collaborative process and adds to student success. Important to talent acquisition is to seek the best candidates. But in addition to that, it starts much earlier. We want to entice the best candidates to seek us. And this gets back to some of the things I've already heard through what we've talked about today. It's talking to students and letting them know the true realities of these technical jobs and the misconceptions of the past, getting those things cleared away. We have a problem. It's already also been mentioned. 11,000 baby boomers are turning 70 every single day as of 2016. That's one every 7.5 seconds. So it is happening. There's a delayed effect, but it is happening. And this will result in what we project in a 2 million job shortage in the manufacturing sector. Jobs in technology are among the most at risk, and that is why BASF has taken such an engaged approach that we call pipeline relationship management, where we are driving relationships, not just participation, with our different education and industry partners and the workforce potentials that are out there. So this involves direct involvement in all stages of workforce development. The three basic pieces that we go after, our pillars, I guess you could call, is to, one, drive career and technical education awareness. This is our approach to increase the size of the pipeline. So the illustration that you see on the monitors now is basically what, it's a graphic that displays the complexity of the workforce pipeline whenever we talk about it. I speak to so many people, and I get the envision from listening to what they say that they really see the pipeline as the singular pipe that people go in one side, they come out with skills and hired at the end, where in reality, these three pieces of career and technical education awareness, where we are increasing the size or the quantity of workforce potentials coming through the pipeline, working with our nested educational partners to increase the quality of those workforce potentials in that pipeline, and then working with our government and industrial partners to increase the productivity of that pipeline so that we can supply that projected 2 million job shortage. The problem, one of the problems, is that 52% of students today, when surveyed, say they have no interest in manufacturing jobs. But that same data also tells us that the thing that makes them change their mind the most, the one that makes them decide what careers to pursue, is what they're most familiar with. And this drives our need to do more to familiarize students and workforce potentials, as well as retooling adults with the true realities of technology and manufacturing today. Since 2010, more than 380,000 school children in grades K through 12 have participated in science education programs that BASF has put together. Through programs like BASF's Kids Lab, we're helping grade school students build on their natural curiosity for how things work and to develop an interest in science. In programs like BASF's Science Academy and BASF's Tech Academy, we seek to attract high school students to skilled career paths in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. For retooling adults, we focus what we talk to them about to make sure that they understand the misconceptions of pay, that the average pay in manufacturing is actually $10,000 on average more per year than all other sectors combined. This lifestyle, the job availability projections, we hear all the time in the news and other places, the endless counts of where people with four-year degrees can't find jobs. And at the same time, we have a skills gap, we have a projected absence in manufacturing, and these jobs actually pay more. In one school in the Houston area, of the many technical colleges in the area, in one school alone, there are currently today 600 students that have a four-year degree, can't find work, and are going back to get an associate's degree or a certificate to become more employable. And it's just an example of the type of ideas that it takes to fix this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Goebel, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman Rokita, Ranking Member Paulus, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. My name is Janet Goebel, and I'm the Director for Career and Technical Education for Canyon School District in Sandy, Utah, which is a comprehensive school district serving approximately 35,000 students. Additionally, I serve as the Administration Vice President, Division Vice President for the National Association for Career and Technical Education. I'm honored to be here today, and thank you for the invitation to share some of the wonderful opportunities students have in CTE. This morning, I would like to highlight programs of study, business partnerships, and work-based learning opportunities, all of which are extremely beneficial for our students and are key tenets of the Carl D. Perkins Act. In Canyon School District, students have the opportunity to participate in 35 different programs of study. These pathways start in 9th or 10th grade and are followed by a succession of related courses that lead students into post-secondary education or careers. Students are able to earn industry credentials as juniors or seniors, and some leave high school with Utah licenses in areas like healthcare. With these credentials, students are prepared to be successful in their chosen pathway and are ready to hit the ground running in the workplace. Last year, our students earned an impressive 1,739 industry credentials. Many of our CTE students also plan to pursue higher education. This year, we are offering 44 CTE dual enrollment courses with our higher education partners. Students in these courses have the opportunity to experience the rigor of college-level coursework while saving time and money toward earning a college degree. Business partnerships are a key component of our program of study efforts. For example, we have worked with major diesel companies across the state and other partners to develop the Utah Diesel Technician Pathway. In direct response to providing a workforce for the diesel industry, the pathway starts with dual enrollment courses in high school, transformed to college courses, and then allows students to enter the workforce with industry-grade skills. Along with donating many hours of job shadow experiences and giving presentations about this viable career pathway, industry partners donated 12 diesel engines and stands to our district, valued at approximately $180,000, so students can learn on up-to-date equipment. We are also launching a new medical innovations pathway driven by industry partners in the medical device manufacturing area. Students will take high school courses whose standards and objectives have been developed by industry to gain necessary skills for this career area. In addition, we are poised to participate in a new statewide building construction initiative and look forward to a similar partnership in the information technology area. Last October, in an effort to connect more students with industry, we were an integral part of our region's Pathways to Professions Expo event, where students and teachers were able to directly interface with businesses. In its maiden year, over 8,500 students attended. There were even a few students who were hired on the spot. Opportunities like the Expo that connect students with industry are critical. In our district, career exploration activities start with elementary school career days. College and Career Awareness, a required middle school course, exposes students to occupations across all the career clusters. Then in high school, examples of work-based learning activities cover a continuum from field trips, guest speakers, and lunch and learns to internships. All high school students participate in career fairs. Work-based learning facilitators recruit professionals in their own community to represent dozens of possible careers. Having the support of 70-plus businesses is overwhelming and helps students learn about careers they might not even know exist. We also host an annual job shadow event, giving students a first-hand look at the workplace. A wide range of careers are represented, from engineers to graphic designers. This year, 89 students and 41 businesses took part in the event. Some students realize that the career they shadow is not a good fit, which is a valuable experience and allows them time to reevaluate their career aspirations. And as for those students who have found their passion, this experience serves to cement their career decision and also gives them the opportunity to network with industry professionals. Another activity, our annual You Go Girls Conference, with 300 girls attending, aims to introduce middle school age girls to non-traditional occupations. It's very empowering for these young girls to hear from female role models and realize that they too can succeed in these careers. Since initiating this event, the percentage of students enrolled in high school non-trad programs has risen from 26% to 53%. With our Perkins allocation, we fund work-based learning, personnel, and activities like these. Without this flexible funding, we would be unable to offer many of these valuable opportunities for our students. When students are engaged in their learning, and certainly work-based learning and programs of study elevate that engagement, they are more likely to stay in school. In Canyon's district, 94% of CTE concentrators graduated from high school, while the overall district graduation rate is 85%. With the reauthorization of the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Act, Congress has the opportunity to ensure that high-quality CTE programs, including work-based learning experiences, are available for all students. Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Goebel. Ms. Lufkin, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Rakita, Ranking Member Polis, and members of the subcommittee, as well as Chairwoman Fox and Ranking Member Scott, for the opportunity to testify before you today. My name is Mimi Lufkin. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity. NAEP is a consortium of state and local education agencies supporting educators in carrying out the equity and special population provisions in the Perkins Act, as well as other education and workforce development legislation. Nationwide, some 13 million students are enrolled in CTE programs in secondary and post-secondary institutions. These programs are developing America's most valuable resource, its people, helping them gain the skills, technical knowledge, academic foundation, and real-world experience they need to prepare for high-skill, high-demand, high-wage careers and keep America working in every sense of the word. CTE provides a positive return on investment for both students and the economy. Students who earn a CTE-related associate's degree or certificate can make an average of $9,000 more per year, $20,000 more per year in health career fields. Students engaged in high-quality CTE have higher academic achievement, and are more likely to graduate from high school. Attendance in a CTE program more than doubles the rate of college entrance for minority students. In Florida, CT students taking dual enrollment courses are 22% more likely to enroll in post-secondary institutions as compared to their peers. And in Indiana, the community college system estimated savings of $14.1 million in tuition costs for students in dual credit courses. CTE plays a critical role in creating a skilled workforce and a more diverse workforce. Since its reauthorization in 1972, the Perkins Act, then the Vocational Education Act, has contained provisions supporting disadvantaged students and special populations, such as low-income students, students with disabilities, English language learners, single parents, displaced homemakers, and students pursuing non-traditional careers, with access and success in CTE programs. Increasing access to high-quality CTE programs for every student, especially for underrepresented students, must be a priority in federal policy. By 2024, employers need to fill more than 2 million middle-skilled jobs, those that require less than a baccalaureate degree, in information technology, manufacturing, transportation, distribution, and logistics, all fields that are critical to the health of our nation's economy and security. Only 11% of the workers in these fields are women. In 2014-15 school year, women represented only 23% of IT concentrators, 12% of manufacturing concentrators, and 9% of transportation, distribution, and logistics concentrators in post-secondary CTE programs. In addition, men represented only 19% of concentrators in health career programs. These high-demand fields cannot afford to have half the population unavailable as potential members of their workforce pool. Under the provisions in the Perkins Act, NAEP has been working with educators at the state and local level across the country to move the needle on equity in CTE. For example, in Oregon, Douglas Education Service District increased the enrollment of girls in their welding program from 4 in the fall of 2015 to 38 in the spring of 2016. In California, Cordova High School increased female participation in their Project Lead the Way Introduction to Engineering Design course from 4 to 14 girls in one semester. And in Ohio, Morgan Local Schools increased the enrollment of boys in health sciences to 50% of enrollment. States play a critical role in leading the implementation of innovative and high-quality CTE programs. The sharing of these best practices, providing technical assistance, collecting and sharing disaggregated accountability and participation data, ensuring civil rights enforcement, and holding states accountable are all critical roles for the federal government plays. The CTE community has benefited from the initiatives that the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education has led, such as the Data Quality Institutes, the Peer Collaborative Resource Network, and the Advancing Equity in CTE Project, to name a few. Our state members have also found the U.S. Department of Education's monitoring visits to be valuable in highlighting successes and uncovering opportunities for improvement, particularly in regards to ensuring the needs of special populations are being met. NAEP has benefited from access to national data on accountability measure performance and CTE concentrator data disaggregated by gender, race, ethnicity, and special population status as we work with states and local education agencies to close participation and achievement gaps. It's critical that the federal role be maintained in the Perkins Act to ensure that CTE continues to transform itself to meet the needs of the military, business, and a workforce competing in a global economy. Most importantly, for any of this to be possible requires that Perkins be fully funded. Since 1991, the Perkins Basic State Grant Program has been reduced by 45% when adjusting for inflation. Now is the time to invest in America's educational system that creates its most valuable technical workforce. I want to congratulate the House Education and Workforce Committee for its bipartisan passage of H.R. 5587, Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act in the 115th Congress, and look forward to working with you to ensure that the reauthorization of the Perkins Act in the 116th Congress builds on that good work. Our nation needs every individual to be able to access high-quality CT programs that lead to occupations with a family-sustaining wage, and our nation's economy needs a diverse workforce to ensure we continue to be globally competitive and the world's leader in innovation. CTE can help make that a reality. Thank you for allowing me to testify, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Lufkin. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate the invitation. I'm not sure who the ladies are to my left, but I'd wish to acknowledge them. I don't know what you're doing, but it is fascinating to watch you do it, honestly. Back in 2011, the Transportation and Commerce Committee invited me to share my thoughts on how to close America's widening skills gap. So I came to this building to talk about a critical part of the solution most often overlooked by politicians and educators. That would be the pressing need for better PR. I talk specifically about the stigmas and stereotypes that dissuade millions of people from exploring thousands of genuine opportunities in the skilled trades and the urgent need to challenge those myths and misconceptions. I pointed out that President Obama's promise of 3 million shovel-ready jobs sounded great, but I worried that filling those jobs would be challenging, especially in a country where fewer and fewer people aspired to pick up a shovel. I concluded by telling the committee that millions of open positions will remain unfilled until society changes its opinion on the definition of a good job. And then I invited those present to join me in a larger effort to do that very thing. Shortly after my testimony to the committee, the skills gap closed, unemployment plummeted, and America got back to work. I'm kidding. Shortly after my testimony, the skills gap widened, unemployment grew, and society continued to ignore thousands of opportunities that comprise a critical part of our workforce. So a few years later, I was invited back to the Hill to address the Natural Resources Committee and talk more about the causes of our widening skills gap. This time, I focused on the unintended consequences of promoting a 4-year degree as the best path for the most people. There was a time when higher education needed a PR campaign, and it got one. Unfortunately, the push for 4-year institutions came at the expense of community colleges, trade schools, and apprenticeship programs. Thus, every other educational opportunity began to feel subordinate. Also, the overall push for college coincided with an overall removal of vocational arts from high schools across the country, and the effects of that 1-2 punch laid the foundation not just for a widening skills gap, but for a level of student debt that's massive, premature, and completely unnecessary. I testified that tuition had soared in part because thousands of well-intended parents and guidance counselors were telling millions of kids, irrespective of their individual skills, that their best hope of success was the most expensive path available. The pressure on kids to borrow money was enormous, and so they did. Consequently, college tuition rose faster than the cost of food, energy, real estate, and health care. I also shared some personal stories with the committee that day, including a run-in with my own guidance counselor 35 years earlier. In 1980, Mr. Dunbar did everything in his power to dissuade me from attending a local community college. I was told outright that a 2-year school was beneath my potential. But a 4-year school would have been a huge mistake at that point in my life. I was 17 years old, I had no money, and I had no idea of what I wanted to do. The local community college offered hundreds of courses in my price range, so that's where I went, and that experience opened doors that I didn't even know existed. But that same experience is precisely what thousands of kids are discouraged from pursuing every single year. I told the committee then that this cookie-cutter approach to promoting higher education has led thousands of graduates with expensive degrees from excellent schools, but with no prospects in their chosen field and no way to pay off their student loans. With the universal push for a 4-year degree more intense than ever, I argued then that our skills gap is the direct result of a mistaken belief that the best path for the most people is a 4-year degree. And I concluded with another appeal to aggressively confront the stigmas and stereotypes that discourage people from entering the trades, along with the challenge to guidance counselors to present a more balanced presentation of educational alternatives beyond high school. After my testimony in 2013, the skills gap closed. Public education re-embraced the vocational arts, college tuition returned to affordable levels, and America finally got back to work. I'm kidding. It was fascinating. Shortly after my testimony, the skills gap got even wider, tuition got even more expensive, and guidance counselors continued to use a career in the trades as a cautionary tale for those who resisted a 4-year degree. Now the situation has devolved even further, and my own mother has concluded that I am part of the problem. The more you testify, she said to me last night, the worse things get. She may be right. Today, the skills gap is wider than it's ever been. 5.6 million jobs, according to the BLS. Vocational education is still missing from an overwhelming majority of high schools. Bills like the one before this committee still meet resistance in part because millions of Americans still view a career in the trades as some kind of vocational consolation prize. It's a bias, as misguided as any other prejudice with us today, and it poses a clear and present danger to our country's overall economic security. The student loan bubble is going to burst, as bubbles always do. Currently, the outstanding debt is $1.3 trillion, and yet we continue to lend money we don't have to kids who can't pay it back, to teach them jobs that no longer exist, while ignoring all kinds of careers that actually do. In Springfield, Massachusetts, right now, there are tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs available, yet the unemployment rate in Springfield is just as high as it is in the rest of the state. The mismatch between available skilled jobs and the unemployed local population is enormous, and it's happening everywhere. And so at the risk of making things worse, I have come here today to address the House Committee on Education and Workforce. Alas, I have nothing new to tell you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. I can't let your celebrity bend the laws of the clock.
I appreciate that very well. The only thing in television that takes 5 minutes is 20.
And please let the record reflect that the ladies that a witness was referring to were our court reporters, who I think used to work at the NSA and have friends at the IRS. So don't
I believe
worry.
it.
You're going to be fine, Mr. Rowe. I think you'll be fine. I'm going to pass temporarily on my questioning and recognize the chairman of the full committee, Dr. Fox, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairman Rokita. And I will add to what the chairman said about those wonderful ladies on your left. My understanding is that there are lots of job openings in that field, and it pays very well. Mr. Johnson, BASF has a clearly demonstrated commitment to collaborating with educational institutions to address its workforce needs. I'm very familiar with what you do. Many smaller companies, however, lack the resources and expertise that someone like BASF has, and makes them difficult for them to dedicate time and energy to maintain the partnerships with educational institutions. How do your educational partnerships help local small and medium-sized employers address their own workplace needs?
Thank you very much for the question. For what we do with BASF, we look for our corporate partners, our industry partners, to come along with us for the ride, because we cannot do it alone. The last thing I would ever want whenever I go to an advisory committee for a technical school, to talk to them about the alignment between their learning outcomes and our KSA's knowledge, skills, and abilities that we need at hire, is for us to be the only ones at the table. We want our other industry partners there so that we come together with what we think the foundation should be, so that there's a true handshake between our individual training programs inside industry where we can all take over. So we want them there with us, and not only do we want, but we actually seek them out to be sure that they're a part of everything that we do when it comes to career and technical education awareness.
Thank you. And I want to say to all our witnesses and to Ranking Member Polis, I'm so grateful that you've presented so many facts today on the positive impact of career and technical education, because I think it's so important that we get that information out there in the public to offset what Mr. Rowe talks about, and that is helping to change the image of career and technical education. And I can't let this hearing go by without reminding people that Harvard College began as a vocational school. And if you don't believe me, look it up. Ms. Goebel, in your testimony, you described how work-based learning elevates the student experience and leads to more engaged students. I agree that work-based learning is critical for exposing students to the skills they need to succeed in the workplace. But unfortunately, too few students have the opportunity to participate in such programs. Tell me the challenges you faced in expanding the number of work-based learning opportunities for students and how you've overcome these challenges.
Thank you. Yes, it is a challenge to have every student participate in work-based learning activities, and part of that is driven by how many industry partnerships you have. In our district, we're continuing to get more and more industry partners, which helps facilitate that. Additionally, we've tried to overcome that challenge by having all-school career fairs where every student in the high school participates and they have a chance to interface with industry. As I mentioned, with our Region Pathways to Professions Expo event, That was a great opportunity for work-based learning where students could actually talk with businesses. They were exchanging business cards, making arrangements for job shadows and all sorts of other activities. But it is a challenge. In the perfect world, we'd have every one of our students do a half-day job shadow in their high school experience. It's just not practical. We don't have that many business people.
I know this is a challenge. I used to have interns in my office when I worked at Appalachian State University from the local high school who were in the business programs. And so I know it's been going on for a long time. We just need to broaden it. Mr. Rowe, I want to thank you for being the incredible advocate that you have been for hard work and the skilled trades. And I agree with you completely. We need to change the way people think about career and technical education. And I do think that we all have a responsibility to do that. All of us here, all of us in any part of education in particular. And I want to say that folks who've been around me for very long know that I really get on to people for their language as it relates to what we're talking about. And I do think getting rid of the word vocational education would help us a great deal, because I ask people when they're going to college, what do you want when you get out of college, 4-year college, or now a 6-year college? It takes 6 years to get a degree. They all say a job. So all of education is vocational education, in my opinion. So we can work on changing our language. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for going over.
I thank the chairwoman. Mr. Scott, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lufkin, in the old days, vocational education was an alternative to an academic career. You'd learn a little trade, shop or something, and get a job and keep it for 40 years. Now people are changing jobs frequently during their career, and they need the education. And so career and technical education should not be an alternative to academics, but an alternative setting where you can learn the same thing and not get off track. Does the present CTE legislation require the basic education to be achieved instead of an alternative to learning what you need to know?
Thank you for the question, Chairman Scott. The current Perkins legislation has extremely strong provisions in it for the integration of academic and career and technical preparation. There includes an academic performance measure for secondary students. Technical skill attainment are also included in the performance accountability system. So the connection between academic preparation and technical skill preparation is really a critical component of the current Perkins legislation.
Does that need to be improved to make sure that they get the academics, or is that sufficient?
Well, certainly I think any improvement in that area would help continue to make those connections. The legislation that was passed by this body last fall also continued that, strengthened that, I think, to some degree. I think that the issue here also, which I think is critically important to look at, is to ensure that states and local educational agencies are collecting disaggregated data by special population status, race, ethnicity, and gender to ensure that any academic achievement gaps are addressed, and in order to identify those equity gaps and close them. And the legislation that you passed last fall included a needs assessment language in it that was, I think, a really good provision that moves towards that. But certainly strengthening the connection between technical skill attainment and academic preparation to eliminate those lines, as Congresswoman Fox mentioned, there really should be no difference between academic preparation and technical skill attainment. Education is education, and the outcome we hope for that is for every student to come out of their experience with a career, hopefully not be in school for the rest of their life.
Thank you. And how do you focus on those most likely to be unemployed to make sure our money is targeted to where it most needs to go?
So the way the funds are distributed now through an allocation process includes student population as well as income levels as part of the formula, and that's an important component of this. The schools that have the highest need in terms of low-income students also potentially have the highest need for career and technical education to ensure students obtain the benefits of higher wage potential in their future and to become economically self-sufficient. Provisions in the legislation, I think, that are also critical include, in addition to accountability measures that look at the performance of those students through disaggregated data, but also the kinds of incentives that exist through the required uses of funds section of the legislation that actually puts a priority on ensuring that low-income students and students who are likely to be unemployed also receive benefits. I think one of the biggest challenges in the career and technical education system, or in the education system more broadly, is that students who are at risk of dropping out are often sent to alternative schools. And alternative schools don't always have the best access to career and technical education. And that is a real problem. When I was working as a teacher in California, we frequently saw students who, pregnant and parenting students who had behavioral issues in the regular high school, sent to an alternative school, and then were removed from having access to career and technical education. Actually, CTE is a dropout prevention. It's one of the 15 strategies that the National Dropout Prevention Center has identified as a best practice, and it needs to be available to every student regardless of the systems that they're in.
So when Mrs. Goebel suggested that high school students could get credit, save money, and same time to get credentials and reduce the dropout rate, was she right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I thank the gentleman. Dr. Rowe, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's good to have a relative on the panel today, a fellow Rowe.
Missing a W.
Thank you. In the state of Tennessee, we recognized this problem a few years ago, and hats off to our state legislature and governor, who provides, ours is the only state in the union, I think, that provides free community college and technical college for anyone. We also have a program Mr. Johnson brought up, 11,000 people, seniors, turning 70 each and every day. And we have also a program in the state called Tennessee Reconnect, where you can bring people who, let's say their job has gone to Mexico, China, wherever, and they need to retrain. They can be brought into our technical schools, 27 of them in the state, and we have one within 1 hour of every person in our state that can come back. I told the governor, I don't know whether it'll help you or me, but I think certainly in the future, in the next 20, 30 years, it will be tremendously beneficial to our state. And just to give you a couple of statistics, even during the height of the Great Recession, between 80 and 90% of the people who trained in the technical schools were able to be employed in the skill that they had learned. I know that Mr. Rowe pointed out that his guidance counselor gave him some advice. My guidance counselor in high school advised me to not go to college to take up a trade. I did take up a trade. It was called doctoring, but I did go on to medical school. So I had a trade. It was operating on people. Other people had a different trade, and one of the things I found out in my practice was that we needed those skills to operate the practice. So we trained people in our office, nursing assistants, LPNs, on and on. I'm not talking about the degree people, but you can't operate in the healthcare sector without these folks, or many sectors. The average beginning wage of a welder that leads one of our technical schools in my local community is $35,000. And I talked to a young man not long ago who had, and his guidance counselor, this young man, just a couple of 3 years out of technical school, was making a six-figured income in welding. 80 to 90% of our students get job placement in their field immediately, as opposed to what Mr. Johnson and others of you all said about we graduate from college and you can't find a job. So I've become a huge cheerleader for CTE. I think it is a road. And the question I have for any of you on the panel, and maybe start with Mr. Rowe, is how do we convince young people that it's a great thing to do? I mean, I have a lot of status with what I did. But there is status in making a good living for your family also. So how do we get this drilled down? I think you guys are right, down into the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade level to start tell kids, hey, there's a lot of things you can do. So I'll start with you, Mr. Rowe.
Well, if you want to make America great again, you got to make work cool again. You've got to make it aspirational. It can't be this thing that's sitting there for a whole bunch of people who failed on the aspirational road, it can't be that vocational consolation prize. You just have to change the image of the opportunity. And, you know, there's so many ways you can look at the language and see how we got to where we are. But, you know, the word vocational is an interesting thing to kind of riff on, because it didn't used to be vocational education or even shop. It used to be the vocational arts. So what we did was we took the art out of the vocation, and all we left was some version of drudgery. And you could do that to your career or mine or really anybody's. If you take the artistry out of it, you're just not left with much that's visually appealing from the outsiders. So we just have to be aware of how we present these opportunities to kids. And obviously on the front line of that are the parents of the kids and the guidance counselors. So the language matters, the opportunity matters, and the challenge matters too. You know, my foundation focuses on these jobs, but we do it through the lens of work ethic. You know, we challenge people. You've got to make a case for yourself if you're going to get access to our little pile of money, and then you need to enthusiastically advance. So it's a slightly different way of coming at it, and a long way of saying, you've just got to make it cool somehow.
Well, one of the things I hear, and maybe we don't have a lot of time left, but I go to a lot of manufacturers in my district, and I hear over and over again, we can teach you how to do these things if you can present with the soft skills. Will you show up at 8 o'clock? Will you be there at 5 o'clock and you pass a drug test? I hear it all the time, and I think those are the things we got to teach young people, that work is important, but you also have to have these other skills to be able to be successful at work. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Garrett, you're recognized for 5 minutes. The gentleman turn his mic on.
Sometimes you got to find your passion. Sometimes you walk headlong into it. But this CTE topic today is so important, and I'm really heartened to hear someone far smarter than myself, Mike Rowe, sort of articulate some of the things that I've been saying for years. And I want to pound on these because I think they bear repeating. I refer to an educational industrial complex to get to the heart of it and to bring home to people just how bad the problem I think has become. We've created a paradigm wherein we define success for young people as a 4-year degree from a liberal arts school and a lot on the corner in a subdivision, and that's wonderful for everybody for whom it's wonderful. But, you know, I think 9% of my high school went on to 4-year colleges, and the guy who I graduated with who fixes my car can do things that I could never begin to do. And he, by the way, has a son who's on a full ride to a graduate degree in molecular biology at the University of Notre Dame. So it's not, there's no dishonor in an honorable career. I would contend that every American is entitled to 2 things. Number 1, an opportunity, and number 2, the right to define success for themselves so long as it doesn't impact the liberty of others. And we have painted into a corner the skilled labor that built this nation, and it's tragic. So we have to break that paradigm, and you've done more to do that in the last 6 or 7 years than I may ever do, and I thank you. As it relates to CTE, I know we can do it because I've seen it done here in this country. I recently was in Germany and visited the Bayer Corporation and watched where they had some 200 plus young people straight out of high school who were learning to do things like be lab chemists, like care for animals, physical security, data analysts who came straight out into these fields because the private sector decided that they were going to create the employees that they needed to be successful. BASF, I think, deserves some credit for doing some of that same sort of thing. But we can do more of that. Having said that, you know, as we look to what the paradigm moving forward should be, I would argue that the best arbiter of the needs of the working world are the local communities. In my former job in the Virginia Senate, we saw the community colleges, PVCC, CVCC, Southside Virginia Community College, partner with entities like BWX and Arriva, with UVA Health Systems, and say, where are the needs, and then start creating workforce for those needs so we can do this. But sometimes I think when we try to dictate it from on high at a federal level, we just miss the target because we don't know exactly what we ought to be aiming at as well as the state and local folks do. Having said that, I will turn right back around and commend the Old Dominion Job Corps with whom I worked directly. And it was an eye-opening experience when I walked in there a couple years ago and I said, where are you having your best luck placing young people? And these are young people from challenging backgrounds, socioeconomic distress, tough scenarios, single-parent households. And they said, well, we have 16 kids in the machining program, 15 of them are placed. The 16th is a mother who's sick with cancer. He's going to go home and spend some time with her and then pick from a series of job options. I said, what's the average starting hourly? They were in the mid-20s, and the master machinist may very well, at one point, hopefully, live across the street from the doctor and the lawyer and the college professor. But nobody's telling our young people this. So to the extent that we can make an impact by continuing to do what a lot of you, and particularly you, Mr. Rowe, have done, and saying, hey guys, this is an option and there's no shame in it, in fact, there's honor in it, we have a duty to do that. So I apologize for having more a soliloquy than a question and answer session, but to the extent that I can lend my voice to the small but hopefully growing chorus, this is a no-brainer. The question then becomes how we best do it, and I would argue we need to listen to the localities and the states about what their needs are in their specific geographical area, and then let employers like BASF and BWX drive the need train. Because what I don't want to do is watch the money be sent from the locality to the federal level and then have the administrative cost of handling money take 40 cents out of every dollar and then power it back down to only create more young people who have skills but not in the area where the demand exists in their communities. So having said that, I'd yield back the balance of my time, but thank you immensely and say that I really look forward to hopefully continuing work in this area. There's a message that's more important really than anything else. And that I think Mr. Rowe hit on, and that is there's no shame in any of this. An honest career in a skilled field is as honorable as anything anybody on this dais will do. Thank you.
Gentleman yields. I recognize myself for 5 minutes. I want to thank the witnesses again for your testimony. I continue to learn a lot. Mr. Rowe, I'd like to start with you, picking up on Mr. Garrett's theme. What can we, I mean, we're all in this room together. We all want the same thing. We've heard from your testimony specifically that the skills gap continues to widen because of you mostly, but maybe some other things. So what advice do you have for us? I mean, if I understand your background correct, it's in theater, it's in some other things, and it's in experience in this very part of our economy. What do you have for us in terms of efforts to change the public's perception specifically? Any to-do list or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's that 1,000 points of light thing on the one hand. I was at a gala 2 nights ago, my foundation sponsored, called Project Jumpstart up in Baltimore. Basically, to your point, you know, this is a foundation that evolved because the local builders simply couldn't find people who were enthused about learning a trade. So they went into the inner city, and they also focused on nonviolent offenders. They set up a pre-apprenticeship program 10 years ago. 800 people have matriculated. The stick rate's 75%. No other similar effort in workforce development has yielded that kind of result. So we have to find those opportunities where they exist, and then we have to shine a really bright light on them, and we have to tell stories of the guy I met 2 nights ago. Tomor Knight was his name. He was making $10 a day 8 years ago. Now he's a master electrician, $52 an hour. He should be on a poster. You know, in the 50s, our country had this terrible dysfunctional relationship with litter. You know, way before the green thing that was Keep America Beautiful. That was a campaign that actually started with some government help, some NGOs, some concerned citizens, and some big businesses. And they got together. You'll remember the weeping Indian on the side of the highway. That was an iconic image, and it took about 1.5 generations for the needle to move, but it did. And a lot of money went into a media campaign, and in a lot of different ways, that consortium challenged our relationship with litter. We can do the same thing with work, but it'll take time. That's what I meant when I said we got to make it cool again. We need images, we need portrayals, and we need to challenge the stigmas and stereotypes where we find them. Right? Not every plumber in the world is 300 pounds with his pants halfway down, even though that's what it looks like on TV. That's not the way it is. So we need to have fun with it, call it out when we see a misrepresentation, and provide better optics. There are 1,000 ways to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. I appreciate your leadership again. And I guess for the rest of you three, let me set this up, taking Mr. Rowe's comments and saying, you know, if we're going to have a free republic, if we're going to continue to have one, we need engaged citizens. I need critical thinkers. We need all these things. And one of my fears, and maybe some others share it, and it's apparently unfounded, but I want you to address it, is that if we can't have automatons. And I remember back when I was in high school, I'm a bit of a gearhead. I still restore cars. I break as much as I fix, that kind of thing, but still have a very interest in it. It's good therapy, Mr. Rowe, for being in Congress. I can actually try to fix things. And what I was pleased about was my mother insisted that I go on to college, where I learned more critical thinking skills, where I learned about Locke and Hobbes and all these other people who had big ideas. And I use that today still. For the one that goes to career and technical education as a 17, 15, 18-year-old, but that might be the entrepreneur, but just hasn't been exposed to that yet. That might be the next president or what would the leader. How do we ensure that those skills are preserved while we're teaching them such a technical education? Mrs. Goebel?
One valuable way that we do in our district, and this is prevalent across the nation as well, is through our career and technical student organizations. When you talk about those foundational skills, critical thinking, presentation, soft skills, those types of things that are so critical in the workplace, having students participate in those organizations such as FBLA, FFA, and other things really helps those students gain those leadership skills, and those are the types of things that last throughout their entire life. It also addresses what Mr. Rowe was bringing up about it being fun and cool to be participating in CTE. When students are engaged in those CTSOs, those student organizations, they're having a good time, and they're learning some valuable skills that will keep them their
Mr.
lifetime.
Johnson, can I give you the last 10 seconds on my question? Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Lufkin, I'm not going to get to you.
Sure, no problem. One of the best ways that we've seen to do it is to be sure that the different courses, the certificate programs versus the associate's degrees, are stackable skills, so that we can focus on the technical education part of it, what they need to know to perform on the job. But then as they complete that first portion of that training or that technical education, they're able to move on to the critical skills types of learning as well. And whether they do it all together, if they go ahead and get their first job through that certificate, then they can continue on and with those critical
Do you feel you
thinking
have
skills.
engaged citizens at BASF working as your employees?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Bonamici, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When I'm home in Oregon, I spend as much time as I can visiting schools and meeting with students and educators and parents. And every community I visit, there's sort of universal support for Perkins CTE and high-quality CTE programs. I visit programs that are serving diverse students, challenging them academically, preparing them for high-skilled, in-demand jobs. One of my favorite visits, although there have been many, was the girls-only welding class at Sherwood High School. I also visited a great auto tech program recently at Beaverton High School. And I know that it takes strong partnerships to develop successful CTE programs that serve all students, especially those in underrepresented communities that are aligned with local labor markets. In Oregon, the Portland Area Career Technical Education Consortium, PACTEC, is an example. In my district, Portland Community College manages partnerships with school districts and industry groups and develops those strong articulation agreements. And this means that high school students pursuing programs of study can earn college credit and transition to the community college and gain skills that are used by industry partners. A number of the schools, districts in PACTEC are relatively small and are situated in rural areas. So forming that consortium and partnering with the community college has helped these districts. But still, delivering high-quality CTE programs in rural areas often requires overcoming financial and geographic obstacles. I do want to mention, too, that Yamhill Carlton High School in my district has a viticulture program that teaches students how to work in the wine industry, which is a big part of the economy in that rural community. I think it's the only high school with a vineyard. So, Ms. Lufkin, can you discuss what more the federal government can do to help rural schools in particular develop high-quality CTE programs and advance equity in CTE?
Thank you. So I'm a former ag teacher, I should admit that openly here, and taught in a very small rural high school actually in Northern California. That experience has taught me quite a bit about how how to access resources in a community that's disengaged from an urban center. And I, of course, was doing that at a time when we didn't have the technology that we have available today. So in the work that we're doing, and in your state, actually, we have a significant initiative going on with the Oregon Department of Education through the Perkins Act that is supporting increasing access and success of underrepresented students in non-traditional career and technical education programs across your state. And that has been incentivized basically by the accountability provisions in the Perkins Act and also by the other provisions around the state leadership funds that encourage support for non-traditional students. We've been working with a significant number of rural schools. You mentioned the Roseburg. There's a school in Roseburg that has a very large class of young women who are in their welding program. And that happened as a result of this initiative. It's really the federal policy that's in the Perkins Act that has driven this. It creates an incentive. It creates a sense of need, whether it's the carrot or stick approach in this case. What I love is when I hear principals say, I had no idea this was an issue for us, and when they discover it, that they actually can affect it.
I want to follow up. You mentioned accountability, and I really agree with the need for accountability in the any CTE reauthorization to make sure we're really increasing participation in CTE, especially with groups historically underrepresented. So can you talk about what this committee can do to give states and districts the tools they need to use data? Oftentimes, school districts don't have the capacity to make use of disaggregated data. So what can we do to help to make sure that they're continually improving their programs and that they adopt research-backed strategies for advancing equity in CTE?
Well, actually, there are a few provisions that you included in the bill that you passed last fall that do that. So one is the requirement for disaggregated data to begin with. Actually, you might be surprised, but when we go and work with schools, they have really the capacity to deal with that data in a much better way than I think we assume they do.
That's reassuring.
Yes, yeah. Data-based analysis of performance gaps has become common day practice at least in career and technical education, for sure.
In my few remaining seconds, last Congress I worked with Representative Stefanik to include language in a CTE bill that would authorize federal funds for integrating arts and design skills into CTE programs. We're in an innovation economy. Can you discuss the benefits for students and local economies of teaching arts and design skills in CTE programs of study?
Absolutely. Those skills are critical for innovation. And what we know is that students who have the ability to think creatively can be more innovative. There's been actually research studies that show that that kind of practice in technical settings, the combination of design and critical thinking skills creates more innovative solutions.
Thank you. And as I yield back, I invite all my colleagues to join the bipartisan STEAM caucus.
We love bipartisanship. Gentlewoman's time has expired. Mr. Thompson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman, thank you. Thank you so much for having this hearing. I want to thank all the witnesses, your organizations, your companies, your personal work, everything you've done in terms of being champions for career and technical education training. As co-chair of the Career and Technical Education Caucus, I share your passion. I know how important that is. Ms. Rowe, good to see you as a brother Eagle Scout. First time we met actually, and the last time we met was at the National Jamboree in West Virginia.
Sure.
Hopefully I'll see you there later this year. Hopefully you'll be coming back, and I'm looking forward to visiting. My first question is for you, Mike. In your testimony, you mentioned Project Jumpstart, very successful job training program, which really does sound like music to my ears and those of my colleagues, I'm sure. Now, you mentioned its success in urban areas. Do you or have you seen this model work in rural areas?
No, I haven't. In fact, I haven't seen it firsthand work anywhere but Baltimore, which is why I'm behind it. I grew up there, but I also think that as a format or a template, it's low-hanging fruit. It's something that could easily be identified. It's not really on point to the bill I know we're contemplating, but it does check a few of the boxes. I would suggest an even better organization to make people more aware of is Skills USA. You mentioned the Boy Scouts, you mentioned Future Farmers of America. You know, I work pretty closely with both of those groups, but nobody hits it as squarely on the head as Skills USA. 300,000 kids basically competing every year in national competitions within the CTE world. And it's phenomenal to watch their passion, and it's amazing to watch them grow. And it's criminal that more people don't know about them. I mean, literally, you fill a room with 1,000 people and 950 have never, ever heard of them. But they're the best example I have of a private organization that really stepped up to kind of fill in that smoldering crater we created when we took the vocational arts out of high school. There are many, many others, but in terms of PR, we got to hear more about Jumpstart. We got to hear more about Skills USA.
Yeah, you raised a very important issue I think we're all aware of is a lack of, well, what we're aware of, but it's the lack of awareness of the incredible opportunities. And some of that can be achieved through raising awareness of Skills USA and other great programs that we have in place, because I think today we still deal with a stigma of, among students and more specifically among parents. And I know that with the legislation last year that we'll be reintroducing here hopefully next month, part of that was pushing down an awareness to the middle school earlier for kids to be able to have that information. Ms. Lufkin, first of all, thank you for your service as a former agriculture educator. The agriculture certainly is one of the, well, it is the largest industry in Pennsylvania. 1 out of 7 jobs come from agriculture, and the connection between strengthening career and technical education and improving the agriculture industry is undeniable. I love the STEAM caucus, but I have a double A. It's arts and agriculture. Your testimony made it clear that students who engage in CTE during their time in school tend to have access to a higher quality of life. How can a reauthorization of the Perkins Act help give more students from all backgrounds this promising opportunity to succeed?
That's a big question. So I think access to high-quality career and technical education is sort of the key component of this, and that is ensuring that every career and technical education program that's funded with federal funds is of that nature. So I know that the Association for Career and Technical Education, and we have been involved in this, are in the process of creating criteria around what that particularly means. And so certainly the federal legislation could support the inclusion of what high quality stands for. So articulated credits, integrated curriculum, equity is a component of that, access to work-based learning, dual enrollments, all of those and more could certainly be incentivized in the legislation. I think also ensuring that special populations have access more than just non-discriminatory language, but actually proactive strategies for engaging special population students in career and technical education are also other ways that the legislation could be supportive of the question of access to CTE.
Thank you, Chairman.
Excuse me, I thank the gentleman. Now recognize Mr. Polis for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Lufkin. I want to thank you for being here again today. In Denver, the Career Education Center Early College Magnet School helps prepare students for the workforce by providing career technical education through dual and concurrent enrollment. I'm very proud to say that about 10,000 students in Colorado participated in career and technical education concurrent enrollment courses, which is about 40% of all concurrent enrollment students. So it's become a very prevalent part of our concurrent enrollment system. As you indicated in your testimony, concurrent enrollment is a proven method for helping students have access to career and technical education. I wanted you to talk about the role of concurrent enrollment and particularly how it can support first-generation students, non-traditional college goers, and other disadvantaged youth, and the role that that plays in career and technical education.
Well, I think, thank you for the question. And I think that there are lots of ways that dual enrollment actually do that. First of all, access to college for a first-generation student may contain within it a variety of barriers, whether they're financial, whether it's parental support. It could even be an issue of transportation, location, especially when we're talking about rural schools. And the availability of post-secondary credit while obtaining a high school diploma is a significant incentive for particularly low-income students to access college in a way that doesn't do what Mr. Rowe was talking about, creating this huge college debt. First-generation students also may not have the same support systems in place for students to be able to access college. So for students to have success in a dual enrollment system, for example, can provide them with their own internal incentives to continue. And the research shows that that actually is the case.
Mrs. Goebel, do you have experience with dual concurrent enrollment programs in Utah, and do you want to speak to their relevance to career and technical education?
Absolutely. Yeah, we offer a lot of dual enrollment with partnering with Salt Lake Community College. It is just, as Ms. Lufkin mentioned, it is a great opportunity for particularly underrepresented students to be able to do that. In Utah, it's only $5 a credit, which is a huge bonus for them. To be able to do college courses.
What is, by the way, what is the cost per credit outside of that?
It's about $150.
Big difference, yeah.
Yeah, a huge difference. And to be able to have students participate in college-level coursework within the safe confines of a regular classroom that they're familiar with, bridge that gap, and they feel like they have the internal, I can do it, and they do.
The other topic I wanted to touch on is the value of apprenticeship programs in career and technical education. Colorado recently launched CareerWise, a public-private partnership that has a goal of training 20,000 students for need-based, high-paying jobs through apprenticeships. Colorado's program is an example, but it's something we need to do more of. Many unions have been leading the way on apprenticeship programs for decades. I wanted to go to Mr. Rowe and Mr. Johnson. We'll go to Mr. Rowe first to briefly talk about the role of apprenticeships, how they support and prepare students, and how they can be an effective model for career and technical education.
I just can't imagine a more important paradigm or model, you know, in any trade, in any vocation, the business of showing up and putting your hands on the thing, whether you're a doctor or a mechanic.
And do you think it makes a difference that many of the apprentices are actually getting paid, and they probably need to get paid during that period? Does that make a difference in participation as well?
Sure it does. You know, I mean, and you can see it right now in so many private companies too. Caterpillar has a program called Think Big, I believe, and a lot of different companies have a different version of it, but it's a transitional way to get a kid right from high school right into the work and reward them along the way. With the Project Jumpstart thing we were mentioning, you know, they use stipends, you know, instead of a paycheck. But the interesting thing is with Jumpstart is there's a consequence. Somebody was talking about soft skills. You show up late, they take the stipend. Shirt's not tucked in, cell phone goes off. So it's a great way, the apprenticeship model, to, again, reward the kind of behavior you want to encourage.
And Mr. Johnson, can you address why it's important to include apprenticeships in Perkins CT reauthorization?
Apprenticeships they provide such a connection with the job before they finish their actual education that they get a realistic job preview the entire time that they're getting the education. It not only increases their direct applied skill because it's the actual work that they'll be doing, but it conveys even more knowledge to them that they can talk to their friends about, and it becomes really an awareness that pushes career and technical education awareness in the forefront in that way.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. The gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this important hearing. You know, we've talked about it before in this committee, but it is important we start to rethink many of these programs. You know, some of our higher education programs are some of the most successful federal programs ever invented, but many of them are structured on what I call 4 homecomings in a backpack kind of approach, where we think of an 18-year-old kid grabbing their backpack, running off to school. Some kids do that, but of course in today's world where careers can change many times throughout your lifetime, that doesn't fit everybody's needs. And as others have discussed, we need to get folks prepared for a job in the economy. That's where we really give them value. And 6 in 10, as many as 6 in 10 manufacturing jobs go unfulfilled because we don't have folks that are trained and prepared for that job. I wanted to direct my first question to Mr. Johnson. And we've heard, and I've heard in my district from many employers that discuss the challenges they face in finding skilled employees. how do these workforce shortages affect companies?
Well, I've attended a number of conferences recently where we talk about that very thing. We talk about this projected skills gap, this projected gap of employees that are going to be available for even in the manufacturing sector. And sadly, some of the organizations are now beginning to plan on the possibility that that's actually going to happen. It's almost, they're still trying to fix the problem, but they're so convinced that it's an inevitability that they're planning on that not happening. So we basically must continue to push that idea that this is a job that is worth people having.
And I guess what you're saying there, Mr. Johnson, is that they may have to decide to mechanize or make other decisions as a company because they're worried that they don't have the workforce to meet their needs or move somewhere else.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to remember that the part of the biggest problem I think that we have is that, and we've touched on it a number of times, is the message that we're delivering. Organizations all around have what they call a value proposition. They talk about, this is why it's a great place to come and work for our organization. Technical sectors, manufacturing sectors, have to have what I refer to as a manufacturing value proposition. This is why this sector of employment is a great place to be. This is the type of messaging that whenever I go and talk to students or retooling adults, that any of us on the panel or any of you go, we should be saying the same things, they should be hearing the same things so that we have a branded message. We talk about, we don't say the things all the time, but we don't talk about what specifically are the things that we need to say. An example of that is when I see students' eyes open the most is whenever we show them a chart that we created that shows the people that are graduating high school at the same time, and they choose 4 or 5 different careers. The careers we have are welder, process operator, lawyer, teacher, and we show where they go in debt to begin with, basically spending money on school one way or another, and then they become making money, which is their average income. When we show the chart, and what we can actually show the students and retooling adults, that it actually takes a lawyer in the Houston area 20 years to catch up with a welder or a process operator because of the length of time they're still in school while these welders and process operators are making money. That's an example of the type of information that we have to have a branded way of talking.
Bottom line, many of these jobs are good paying jobs. We also in our district are working on getting kids to come in high school into manufacturing facilities so they can see what they look like, right? And that they can see that these can be very pleasant places to work. Ms. Goebel, in my limited time, I wanted to follow up on some of Mr. Polis's comments and ask, are these dual enrollment opportunities accessible to students from low-income backgrounds? And are there programs to help students afford these programs if they're unable to cover the costs?
Absolutely. Students who are unable to pay for the cost, the college still does require the $5 per credit hour. However, the principals of our high schools have the available funds to cover that for any student because we're dedicated to make sure that they have those same opportunities.
Yeah. I think with my limited time, I'll just yield back the rest after just thanking you all for all your work that you do every day to make sure that people in America have an opportunity. And again, thank the chairman for this important hearing.
Thank the gentleman. Gentleman yields. We now recognize for 5 minutes Mr. Krishnamurthy, a member of the full committee, a guest of the subcommittee today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be part of your subcommittee for today. And I think this is such a great topic. It's one that people on both sides of the aisle can really get together on and make some progress on. It's my humble belief that at some point in the history of the United States, we're going to go from a compulsory education system of K through 12 to K through 12 plus. And that plus is yet to be defined, but I think it's going to have a heavy career and technical education component. And here's my kind of comment and question, which is that I believe that the ultimate indicator of success of these career and technical educations is not kind of coming out with a piece of paper as a certificate, but rather an offer letter. Are they going to have a job? That's what my constituents keep asking me, you know, how do we get jobs for our young people? And so I believe very much in pushing decision-making in the CTE program down to local levels as much as possible, because people at the local levels know what the local demands are in terms of skills, and they know what the skill shortages are. However, this is my question. With regard to the accountability measures, there's been some questioning of, is there enough accountability for whether the programs that are funded through the Perkins CTE are strong enough? And one of the accountability measures I'd like to ask about is, what do you folks think about, requiring that the students who graduate from these CTE programs have a job, or that it's a significant measure of the success of those programs? Mr. Rowe, would you like to comment on that?
Well, I can't speak probably as eloquently to the measures in the bill as the other folks, but I can tell you in my foundation, it's critical. There's this notion, I think, that the existence of opportunity is the balm for unemployment, for instance. And of course, the skills gap tells us that that's not the case at all. There are 5.6 million opportunities, right? So back to the enthusiasm. We can't just assume, in my view, I can't just say, hey, look at what's here, and then get out of the way and watch the people stampede toward it, right? So the way we approach it is we challenge them. We say, look, this is, in our little world, you need to comply with some things that might not be in this bill. You need to write an essay. You need to submit a video. You need to make a persuasive case for yourself. You need to submit references. You need to demonstrate work ethic in some way that we can demonstrably reward. And when we find those kids, well, we've got about 600 who have gone through so far, and they work. And they're using the opportunity for what it is, which is a tool to get to the next level. I would also say very, very briefly that it's so tempting to talk about these jobs as destinations. But what we've seen through our foundation, and certainly in my show, so many small businesses wind up forming around people who begin their careers by mastering a trade. That has to be a part of the proposition as well, in my view.
I'm a former small businessman. I totally agree that I think that the folks coming out of these CTE programs could be our future entrepreneurs, and I hope that they are. But I kind of go back to this issue of I'm all for CTE. I'm passionate about it, but I just want to make sure that the dollars that go to these post-secondary institutions, especially that are going to be doing the CTE, are ending up putting our children and students into jobs. That job placement is so critical, I think, right now. So, Mrs. Grobel?
Yeah, with our business partnerships that I referenced earlier, one of the main tenets of that is that the students who go through those partnerships that are driven by industry actually have preferential treatment in the hiring and interview process. So that is one thing that we're really striving for in every one of those partnerships.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Mr. Johnson wanted to say something.
Yeah, so I think there is a way to put real metrics behind it and assure this accountability is there. An example is within BASF, for us to determine which ones that we will work on the most, we do hiring projections. What are the jobs that are going to be needed the most in the next 1, 5, and 10 years? The ones that have the highest need for that community is where we spend our time and effort. That very same thing can be done with your funding allocations, but basically looking at what are the jobs that really have projected openings and that we don't know how we're going to fill, should probably have some level of funding that's increased versus jobs that we know there's unemployed people all over because there's no jobs for it. So some way to balance that funding toward jobs we know that America needs and are short on is the best way to do that metric system.
I thank the gentleman. Gentleman's time's expired. I would tell the gentleman that I think you're right on track, and the work that we've done last year and that should be in the bill this year is a publishing of some sort of job tracker, both at the state level and at the Department of Education. So, and glad to know that we're going to agree on everything in this committee now going forward. That's a great start. The ranking member is recognized for closing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a report that studied various data sets to identify high growth and high wage occupations in Tennessee. And the information and methods that they used can be replicated in other states to help states determine if their CTE programs are aligned with local labor market needs. And I ask for unanimous consent that this research report be entered in the record.
Without objection.
I want to thank our witnesses. I think a couple takeaways from today's hearing. A running theme is that career and technical education programs need to be relevant and reflective of the actual needs of the labor market. We all know the economy today is not what it was 10 years ago, is not what it is 50 years ago, and sometimes, frankly, our school districts and other stakeholders are slow to adapt. Federal investments should ensure that we have that flexibility at the local level and encourage that flexibility to meet real workforce needs. Career and technical education programs should also invest in all students and diverse students and students from underserved communities and have gender parity in the quality of the jobs that students are being prepared for. As Ms. Lufkin shared, CTE can be a ladder that lifts students into the middle class. CTE is an opportunity to re-engage disconnected youth, like the work that I cited at the Colorado Early College School in Denver, where all students graduate with an associate's degree from high school. In order for career and technical education to be effective, it has to be adequately funded. We've suffered under sequestration and budget cuts to Perkins, and frankly, that's hurt the ability of CTE programs to serve students. Career and technical education is one of the best ways to ensure we have a qualified, relevant workforce, and our country stays competitive, and frankly, at the end of the day, we need to invest in that. I want to refer back to Chairman Rokita's opening remarks. Chairman Rokita spoke about our effort to reauthorize CTE last Congress. As he said, this committee produced a bipartisan bill, passed on the House floor. I'm optimistic that any reauthorization will also be bipartisan, pass overwhelmingly. If we have good ideas from both sides of the aisle that improve and build upon our mark from last session, I think members should be encouraged to bring those forward and create a work product that we as legislators can be proud of and fundamentally will help meet the needs of students across the country and preparing them for jobs to support their families or for college. Thank you again for holding today's hearing, and I yield back.
Well, I thank the gentleman, and I thank the members who joined us here today. I thank the witnesses. Again, I continue to learn a lot on this subject and look forward to working with you as leaders in this community to get this job done. Job being the mountain we are going to climb again this Congress in terms of getting this bill passed and signed into law. And we're very optimistic up here about those probabilities, but we're also very sober in terms of the hard work that's ahead of us. So I hope you can join us. I'm motioning to the witnesses now. I hope you can join us in that effort, and I think and I know you will. Career and technical education provides increased opportunity for all students so that, as Mr. Garrett said in his remarks, Americans can define their own success, and I think that's the key to it. Congress and this committee especially will work to change the policies and the perceptions of CTE. And Mr. Rowe, we look forward to working with you in that regard. And again, thank you for your leadership. It seems to me that the actual partnerships with employers are the ones that seem to provide the most fruit, not putting any others aside. But I'm going to take that as one of my to-dos to make sure that that concept is promulgated as much as possible from a leadership perspective, but also in the language of the law, of the bill. With regard to the money, of course, that's always the issue around here, and we are $20 trillion in debt. I completely agree with Ranking Member Polis that this is a priority, and this is one of the things that could lead to not only individual success, but our success as Americans going forward. So I see this as a high priority. But what Mr. Polis didn't mention, and I'll simply mention it for him and I and everyone else up here, if that is the priority, if that is one of the higher priorities, there has to be a lesser priority, or else we're trading problems. We're giving your future workers, the beneficiaries of your foundation and everyone that you work for, a different problem, that is a higher debt. So budgets are about priorities, appropriations are about priorities. If this is a high one, high priority like I just agreed to, we also have a duty to decide what isn't working, what's less of a priority if we're gonna put more money to this. So I simply say that as a reminder, not only to me but to the whole committee as we work forward on this issue. And with that, again, I want to thank the witnesses. I want to thank everyone for their leadership going forward as we climb this mountain, as I said, and seeing no further business before the committee, I put the committee in adjournment.